Hey, welcome to another episode of Backwoods Brothers. My name is Joel, and I do not have my partner with me tonight. He is out working, and I lost my sound. Okay, well, that earpiece died. Hey, man, how's it going? My brother, he's down there in the comments. I hope you're enjoying your what you're out there doing tonight. I know you're doing good stuff. Anyways, hey, tonight we are going to be talking about Measure 111 that just passed. Oh, and it looks like someone's coming in to give me some new sound. Yep, batteries died quicker than I thought. Anyways, guys, so we're talking about Measure 111 tonight, we are going to be talking a little bit about what that means, how it affects us, and why it's probably one of the most important things for you to know right now, and how it kind of got lost in the shuffle of everything else with the election. But because of that passing, Oregon has just kind of got into a critical state, which you may not even know about it, and that's because there's something called the Oregon Healthcare Task Force. I talked about it before, but because Measure 111 hadn't gone through and passed or anything yet, I really didn't think it would pass, to be honest, but it did. It's now become a serious issue because if somehow they are able to get this Healthcare Task Force actually enacted, it could... what's that? Oh my goodness, they yell at me because I'm by myself. I'm getting picked on. There you go. Sounds off. Okay. So Measure 111 is absolutely, it sounds harmless by itself. Healthcare is good for everybody. It's absolutely, everybody should be getting their healthcare. They need to get access to it. But the way that they're putting it into an Oregon Constitution to make it a constitutional right, definitely not the right way to do it, because when you make it a constitutional right, the government is now obligated by the Constitution to make sure that they do certain things, like make sure everybody gets that health care. So, unfortunately, the way that they want to go about doing that is something called the universal health care, which is basically socialism. Socialism. Before we jump into this, Brandon, let's jump back. Just take this off to don't confuse people with that yet. Measure 111. What that was is the short description of it. It was to bring and amend the Constitution to grant health care to everybody in the state of Oregon and make it a constitutional right, meaning that under all circumstances you are to receive equal and just health care, same as anybody else. Sounds great on the underlying part of it, but however, when that comes into play, that actually grants, because the Constitution is designed there in order to basically give the government certain responsibilities, while everybody else holds the freedom themselves. Everybody else has their own rights. The government's there to grant responsibility. Basically, it's there to grant the responsibilities of the government so that they can do certain things, by now granting them the ability to now control and affect our healthcare. Hey, how's it going, Jack? Good to see you. Okay, so Measure 111, that's in place now. But that right there was actually part of a bigger plan, because all the way back, we're going to roll back into this, jump in a time machine and go back to 2019 when Senate Bill 770 was passed. And I believe we have that one up on the screen here. We can bring up. Okay, Senate Bill 770, what this does, this actually forms something called the Oregon Healthcare Task Force, which they were charged with. I'm not going to go through everything super in detail here. I'm going to give you the synopsis of it. But what they were charged with here was to take a look at what they call single-payer healthcare. Sounds interesting, but what that really means, it's another word for is the government pays your healthcare bill for you. Oh, that's wonderful, right? No one wants a healthcare bill and everything else. But as you know, the government, whenever they get involved in anything, it's never a good thing. It always destroys something. So it's good to see you too. I just shared you on Rally for Oregon. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Jack. And so, see, Micah said, Oregon leaders don't care about the Oregon Constitution nor the U.S. Constitution. Yep, you got that right, Micah. I can't disagree with that one, and they've shown that over and over again. But at the same time, in order to do some things, they still try to have some justification. So when you try to take them to court later in the federal system, the federal judge has to then can't overturn it because it's now part of the Constitution. So he's got to uphold the Constitution, right? There you go. That's why they did this. So back in 2019, they were charged with basically looking at what it would take to put a single-payer healthcare system into place. What's it going to take to get us there? They were supposed to talk to a bunch of very specific people, take input from the community, talk to everybody in their specific fields, and kind of all those along the way, and get all the information and come back with a good piece of response. However, when you actually read through 770, it actually already kind of tells them what they're supposed to do as far as this is what we want, this is how you're supposed to do it, this is the information we want to come out of it. They actually describes very clearly through that. And so while they can go through and they can, all these people that were appointed, which we'll get to that, who was appointed and how that was done in a minute. But when you go through and look at all that, it's like, okay, well, no matter what we came out of it, they already kind of pre-designated what they're supposed to kind of come back with. All they got was a little bit of flexibility in how what they were supposed to come back with was going to be done. So it wasn't really to investigate and find out if it would work and the parameters around it, if it could be put in or anything else. It's going to be put in, make the pieces fit. That's kind of what this is, and you can read through it yourself. But if you scroll down a little bit more on here, it's actually going to talk about who appoints it and what they're appointed. So it says, let's see, Section 2, Establishment Task Force, there it is. So it's supposed to have like the Speaker of the House of Representatives. It's supposed to have someone from the House, Speaker of the House, and the President of the Senate are supposed to be in there, right there. Yep. It also talk about how the governor appoints people that she chooses to put on there. 13 members, okay. And then it said it's supposed to have diverse areas of expertise around the medical care and things like that, but they are appointed by Speaker, House, and specifically the governor. They are put on there. So you couldn't really apply to be on here. They grab you and they put you in there, and they put the people that they want to come on there so they know they get the information back out, which basically makes this entire task force basically a dog and pony show. So we can scroll down for the next section here. Keep going past all the stuff. You'll see the next section, the section for the purpose of it. The Task Force on Universal Healthcare shall produce findings and recommendations reported to the Legislative Assembly as provided in Section 6 and Section 8 of this 2019 Act, okay? For a well-functioning single-payer healthcare financing system that is responsive to the needs of the expectations of the residents of the state by, and it'll go through and list them there for you. But I'm not going to read all the specific details, but it says you have to come back with how we're going to make a single-payer healthcare system work. Not if it'll work, it's how it's going to work, if you read what that says. They go through and talk about their values, which are a bunch of crap. We can skip over those. You can kind of assume what's in there. The principle, same way. And then it says the design in the healthcare system organ plan by the task force, Universal Healthcare, is basically they have to adhere to those values and principles as previously stated. You can assume what those are. Be a single-payer healthcare financing system. It has to be it. They can't find other forms that'll work. It has to be that one item. That's the whole point of it. Ensure that the individuals who receive services from the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, basically make sure veteran stuff works in there, that it's, here you go, equitably and uniformly include all residents of the plan without decreasing the ability for any individual to obtain health care coverage if the individual moves out of the state by obtaining a waiver, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, it's equitably is the first word in there. That's what I'm going to take from there. So broken from the beginning. Plus, they're talking about they want to say preserve the coverage of the healthcare services. This is where it's important at. Preserve the healthcare coverage of the services currently required by Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program, and the Patient Protection and Affordability Care Act. Okay, so anybody who's actually on Medicare and Medicaid, great for getting some basic prescriptions and some basic coughing at the doctors. Anything else? Good God, good luck, because they don't pay for anything and they always go away from paying for those things. It is a very complicated system. Many doctors don't want to take it because they can't navigate through it. They don't have someone to navigate through all that complicated paperwork, and half the stuff isn't covered. So they're trying to give you the quality of care of Medicaid. Okay. So all that, everybody's like, okay, well, why is that such a big deal? Not a big deal. They're going to provide something that's out there already. What's that really mean? let's jump to the Oregon Healthcare Task Force chunk of information there real quick. I'm kind of running through this kind of quick, guys. So if please ask, let me see if we have any questions here. Ability to pick and choose from what kind of healthcare they are willing to provide. I didn't get the beginning of that question. Sorry about that. So it says granting a corrupt government the ability to pick and choose what kind of healthcare they are willing to provide. I'm assuming that's kind of something like it's not good. Jack Allen says Godfather George says McCarthy becoming Speaker of the House is a shame and a sham. Rhino. Okay. Let's see. What do we got here? Okay. So this is the report, kind of like a summary or the proposal, I guess. There's actually an executive summary. Scroll down. Let me see if this is the right one. There's another one I think on LinkedIn there that said executive summary. Curious to see what's on this one. There's an executive summary one on the website here. These links are in the description, guys, too, so you can look at it as well. Actually, go back to the one you just had a second ago, the big one. That one right there, yeah, that one. It's going to be down a little ways in there. It's page 1, but it's actually page 7, I think. Yeah, go to page 7. Keep going. There it is. All right. So I already talked about this is their outcome of everything. Okay, and this is the executive summary. We're going to go through this one the rest of the show for you. Executive summary 7 talks about what it started with the Senate Bill 770, which basically says making recommendations for a functional single payer, which as you guys saw some of the information and the wording in there, and if you read much more into 770, it's basically saying we want not if, but how you're going to make a single-payer healthcare system work. Okay, that's the biggest thing out of 770. It wasn't exploratory; it was a find a way to cram it down our throats type of approach. And also the biggest thing part that if you go through and read a lot of the recommendations through this outcome report is they don't really talk about how they're going to make things work or the concerns they have with what's it going to do for certain areas with people and that need it. The biggest thing is that they're worried about is how they're going to interact with getting the federal government funding to fit in the slots properly. That's where their concern is. That's where they have some things that they need to work out. They keep talking about. Okay, so basically they ran for 2 years. Didn't talk to the people about it. Now, granted, there was 770 is out in the public, so you could technically find it that way. But I don't know about you, but I didn't see it on the news. I didn't see big summits. I didn't see major reports, signs, anything else to get our information and get it out there for us to know about. I talked about it about 4 or 5 months ago, but there wasn't a lot of information out there talking about it, getting it out there and letting the public know. They did a lot of this in secret, and I didn't even know till about it but 6 months ago, and they've been going on this for 2 years. So big deal. They said they held 13 community listening sessions. I talked to a lot of leaders over the last several months, and I could not find anybody that really knew about the healthcare task force. No one knew about it. Having all these community listening sessions, but no one knows about it, makes you wonder who was actually at those community listening sessions. This was too big to fit on here, but it says non-life-threatening, thus they were not going to cover it. A team of surgeons had to threaten a lawsuit on my behalf to get them to cover my life-saving surgery. The Oregon state government is corrupt and evil. Yep. Okay, let's jump down to the recommendations here. Eligibility and enrollment, basically everybody in the state of Oregon is going to get the universal health care no matter their job, income, migration status. Basically, everybody's going to get it. That sounds great, but if everybody's getting it, what's that mean for other stuff? I'm not going to go straight down the way here because that's the way they want you to look at it. Let's see. If we're going to go down to, scroll down a little bit, we're looking for private insurance. So there it is right there. Private insurance, what's that mean? Insurers will have a more limited role in the current system, offering extra insurance to cover benefits and services not offered by the plan. The Universal Healthcare Plan will serve as the main administrator of healthcare benefits in Oregon, okay? So they are going to run your entire healthcare insurance and how your healthcare works, okay? You are no longer allowed and it'll, if you can see the next one here in a second, you are no longer allowed to have your own private insurance if it competes with any of the benefits Oregon offers in any way. That's what this means. When they enact this, your main healthcare insurance company goes away, and you are only allowed by law to have the Oregon healthcare, or you can be private pay. So and it means you pay cash. Someone says 30 opium-based painkillers, $1 each, 9 antibiotics, $20 each to find equitable. 1, 2, tackle cost. Yeah. I'll go back up there. I was just reading a comment there, Brandy. Okay, so you no longer get your private insurance, and you can only help cover what they don't cover. And if they're trying to cover everything or most of all the critical stuff, then you're going to be left to not much for private. Federal funding, that's a joke. These crazy people are just going to force us to pay more taxes. Yes, Micah, we're getting to that soon enough. That I have information too to show you guys what their plans are for that and what that means. Okay, employers and employees. The plan will uncouple health insurance from employment. This means that employers will no longer need to provide health benefits. I love how they word that as no longer need to provide health care benefits. Well, let's look at this for a little bit. Imagine you're like most companies these days, which is about 40% of the companies in Oregon that aren't immediate service. And you have your headquarters here in Oregon, and let's just say you use someone that works remotely, bookkeeping, computers, accounting, designers, programmers, all these different things, right? And they work remotely, and then you have to tell these people, hey, we can no longer offer you healthcare insurance because it's illegal for us to offer it if we're headquartered here in Oregon. And we want you to still work for us, but we can't give you any other options. Or, hey, your healthcare insurance went up dramatically because we had to offer a secondary option for people outside of the state of Oregon, and we don't have as many people on there, so we can't offer you at such a discount. It's going to triple your healthcare costs to work for us, but we want to keep you on there. So if you're a business and that's the option you're given, what would you do? Because if it was me, I would be like, okay, well, time to move my headquarters out of the state of Oregon. But also think about it, if you work in the state of Oregon and you work for another company outside the state of Oregon, now that employer is now required. They can't offer you their insurance because that's illegal because you live in the state of Oregon. You're required to only use Oregon healthcare insurance. So you can't use the company you work for outside the state of Oregon's insurance. You have to use the government's insurance, and that company now has to go through all the headaches to work with the state of Oregon to get it, and I'm a little blurry, to get it all functioning and to meet their requirements from the employer side. So this means that the employers no longer need to provide health care benefits in funding scenarios considered by the task force. Employers would contribute to the health of all Oregonians through payroll tax and rates based on employee wages. So they're going, like Micah mentioned, they're going to tax the employers. Oh, that's like, well, okay, they're going to tax the employers, no big deal. Well, that's not all they're going to tax. We're going to get to the individual employee tax as well. That's also part of it. And you're going to love that one when I get to that in a minute. But think about it, too. If they're going to be taxing additional money to the employers, who's really paying for that? Because the employers aren't just going to eat that cost. They're going to pass it on. Now, is it time for a commercial? I'm sorry, I get going to these things. Okay, hey guys, you know what? We're going to come back to that in just a second here. I'll talk about more about the employer cost, how this can affect people in the economy, who's actually really going to pay for that, and kind of how that works. And then we'll jump into the next portion of that and talk about how it's going to affect individuals and the cost of that and the taxes. And I actually have some of the rates proposed in there as well. We'll talk about as well. So we'll be right back. But first, I want to talk about a wonderful, wonderful company called Whitney Signs. They make amazing signs like the one you see right behind me here, like this one over here. A lot of the signs around town you see from anywhere from the let's see, I think there's a hair salon up the area here. They did a sign over at the local drive-through. They do stuff all over the area. God, they just do a lot of them. So they did one at the dentist's office down there. There's just tons of them all over the place. They do amazing work. Go ahead and check out this commercial for them right now. Hey, welcome back. Thank you for taking a minute there to see that commercial for us. There is a post on there. It says same exact spot on, and I tried to get this out there back in June. Just fell on deaf ears. Okay, you know, my chat's not up, and I'm sure she's sending me these communications. Let's see if I can pull it up quick and get some of this more information here. Well, that loads. I'm going to jump back into it. So the employers are definitely going to be paying a cost on there, okay? But also the employee is also going to be paying a cost. It's not. Come on, show up. All right. So the employee is also going to be paying a cost. They're splitting it between the two. So, but it's not what you think. It's like not everybody's paying for it. They are trying to be equitable, which they are not equitable. They are very socialistic in their approach to it. If you are 200% or below of the federal poverty level, which means $55,500 a year, if you make that or below, you don't pay any cost to this. Nothing goes out of your pocket to pay for this. If you make above the 200%, up to 400% of the federal poverty level, then you have a progressive tax amount that goes up to, and once you hit 400%, then it just stays the same going above that. So the amounts on there, and I can show you on the screen, or I can just tell you guys here, which will probably be easier just to tell you guys. If for the employer side of it, if the person is making $160,000 or below, they're going to pay 7.25% tax rate. If the employee is making $160,000 or above, they're going to pay 10.5% tax rate on that employee. Can you say goodbye to anybody making above $160,000, no matter how good they do in the state of Oregon, or all those jobs going out of state? So there's that portion of it. And then I'm going to talk about how this is going to affect the economy and everything else here in just a second. And there's even a lot more on here as well. This is just the tax portion of it. So if you are below 200% of the federal poverty level, you pay 0%. If you are 200 to 250,000, that's about $75,000. You pay 1%. If you are 250,000 to 300,000 percent of the federal poverty level, this includes, by the way, not individuals, but when you file your taxes and stuff too. If you have a combined amount of money together and it boosts you up, then your tax rate goes up. So if you are 250 to 300% of the federal poverty level, they say 1.75%. Watch how much this jumps. If you're 300 to 400% of the federal poverty level, that's about $110,000, roughly. That's 2.5%. If you are above $110,000, that means you worked hard, you got an education, you worked your way up in your company, you're making more, or you file jointly with your spouse, and you're above 400%. Yeah, this is You're Amazing, Brother. Speak your heart and facts. Yep. Check this out. It went from 2.5% to 8.2% of your wage. 8.25% of your wage. Now, like I said, if you and your wife, let's say you both make $60,000 a year, because that's an average wage. Actually, I think here in Estacada, $65,000 is a medium household income. So that means everybody here in Estacada will probably be paying for most of this at some point or another. But the average person makes, $50,000 to $60,000 in a career-based job, and you got a couple of those in the house making it. You're going to be paying above that amount, so you'll be popping into that 8.2% tax rate. Congratulations, you just lost 8.2% of your income. Now, I talked about the employer portion of that paying an extra 10.5%. Now, granted, there is a thought process of, okay, well, they don't have to pay for the health care benefits, and you don't have to pay for your health care benefits. Okay, well, keep in mind, when you pay for those, when an employer pays for that money, that's a write-off for the employer to reduce the overall taxes that they have there. Well, they no longer have that because they're now paying taxes, and that's part of their taxes. They're paying the taxes anyways at this point. the additional costs that they're going to get from there, they're going to pass on to the rest of the people, rest of the people in Oregon, because they're going to have to recoup that cost. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that the 10.25%, or even let's just say the 7.25%, that just basically offsets the cost of healthcare insurance, which usually as you get lower wages, they tend to offer less type of healthcare because they have lower grade employees. They don't have to attract higher income people. So they don't have to offer as many cool benefits, and their costs go down anyways. But let's just say 7.25% offset that cost. Great. Employers are fine. Well, let's look at the employee. This looks how it affects you directly as the actual employee. When you have your taxes out there and you're paying your health care and stuff, that all comes out pre-tax. Means that you no longer have to pay money, tax money on that cost of healthcare insurance. So if you pay $300 a month or $500 a month, then your income's lowered by that every month, and you went from, let's say you made $2,000 a paycheck, or let's just say more $2,000 a month to keep it real low. Okay. So if your monthly cost is $500, now you're making $1,500, maybe $2,000 after you pay your healthcare benefits. You would get taxed less. Your tax rate would drop because you're in a lower tax bracket. But if you take that away and you're back up to what you were before, because you can't write that off, you're now in a higher tax bracket and you're paying more money on that taxes. So instead of paying what your take home may have usually been $1,500 or whatever after that, or your net to tax you on, you would actually be paying that extra couple percent or whatever on the full amount, not the lower amount. So you're basically paying even more money in taxes. So let's go with a higher income to get this out to the average double income family, which will put them around $120,000, which is pretty normal for 2 income families, or someone who has a more career job and has really worked their way up. So anybody above $120,000 a year, this is, say it's $6,000 a year you pay in your healthcare cost, maybe even $8,000 in healthcare costs, and not to mention you'd take money out in a card in order to pay your stuff. That goes away too, so that's another couple $1,000s you can't use anymore. So let's just say round it up to say about $10,000. It's $10,000 that you normally would pay maybe a $110,000 tax bracket. Now you're going to bump up to the $120,000 tax bracket, and that doesn't just go for state, that goes for federal as well. And you're paying an additional 8% on top of that full rate. So you're like with me, I looked at mine, and it's going to bump me up over $1,000 a month in taxes just for this. So that directly affects your pocket and what you can do with that. So, okay, now that's just your own income and your own effect there. So you're paying lots of personal money out of it. Now let's talk a little bit about how it's going to affect the medical side, and then we'll turn around and talk about how it's going to affect the actual economy. We just did a commercial. Oh, good golly. We'll wait a couple minutes. We'll do a commercial in a couple minutes. I'm on a roll. All right. So the fighting back against the producer. Of course, she controls the buttons. That should be nice. Okay. So we actually, you know what? Before I dive into that side, I guess I will go to commercial. Yeah, she gets it. Hitch and post. All right. One second. Sound echoes into the mics, guys. We have an audience tonight. Long team sports service, great. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the doctor side of things. So,
sorry, guys.
You're killing me. I'm by myself tonight. I'm trying to focus. I'm so distracted. I have ADD. So guys, okay, how's it gonna affect the actual medical side? How's it affect you? Well, one of the things that they talk about in here is they're going to set the rate in which they pay doctors. Doctors cannot take other insurances; they have to only take the state insurance. If they happen to provide that extra service that they don't manage to cover in their benefits, which is the random weird thing that you might buy extra insurance for, then they can take that. But that's rare special occasions. Or you can take a cash payment. What they cannot do, it says in the plan here, is they can't get preference to cash payments. They can only charge the exact same rate for cash payments of what the state's going to pay. So basically the state is setting what the doctors are going to get paid. They're going to pay directly to the doctors or to their clinic or whatever else. Mayday. Yeah, they're going to be setting those rates. So, and it says it'll be regional based upon what's there. So if you're out in the country and you happen to be a specialist, you're going to probably drop a lot lower versus by being in the city where they might pay them a little higher or something like that. But even then, if you look at the Medicare rates, they're usually 30% lower than what doctors get from private insurance. So if you're going to look at the capabilities of that, if you're a doctor who's gone to school for all these times, I think 8 years, something like that, to be a doctor, and all your medical time in practice, learning about it all, working your way up in practice, becoming a specialist, or even a good doctor, are you going to stick around to have your wages drop down at least 30% lower than what you normally get? Or even lower if you charge extra higher rates because you're really good at what you do and you're high in demand? No, you're going to say, screw you. You're going to leave the state, go somewhere where you can get paid the money that you've been working your career for to make. You're going to move your practice. You're going to move yourself. And new doctors that are specialists, good luck any hospitals trying to attract them to you because they won't be able to pay them, what they're going to want. Attracting any doctors in here, good luck on that because you're going to get low-paid, brand-new doctors that don't make a lot of money, the ones that really can't charge much because they suck at their job, or there might be a few doctors left in the area that if they just really want to stick it out and they're really in it for that practice and they don't care about the money.
Abandon ship!
Yeah, that's basically what's going to happen. They're going to abandon ship. They're going to leave the area. So our medical care in the area is going to drop down. It's going to take longer to get in because you have very few doctors to get in, and you're not going to get specialists. And you're thinking, well, maybe if I'll just leave the state, go to Washington or something to get that treatment. Well, good luck, because you have to use the Oregon insurance, which is not going to pay what they expect over there either. They're probably not going to accept it. So trying to get it accepted outside of the area, good luck on that one. Private pay. So private pay, you can pay those rates, but who has the money if you're because you're paying all those extra taxes anyway? So why would you want to? They'll pay for your healthcare insurance. So you're stuck on this healthcare system that doesn't work. You're paying lots of money out from there, and people are betting. And not to mention, the employers are leaving the state because they can't offer insurance to attract the right people. They're paying higher taxes. You have good people that make good money leaving the state because either they don't want to pay the extra taxes for it, or they can't get the healthcare insurance they need. You have people with disabilities. They need specialty care. They have consistent needs to go to the doctors. They're going to be leaving the state because they can't get in. Sure, they don't have to pay for it, but they can't get it. And when you don't charge people for the medical care and they're not responsible for the bill ever, they're going to go for every little sniffle and whine that they have. So those lines are going to get out the door. Look at Canada for that one. Look at Venezuela. Look at, oh, good golly, Norway, I think is what it is. Anyways, I always forget the one up there. Something like that. And anyways, all these guys have universal health care, and they have lines at the door. It's hard to get in. They don't have good doctors. Well, there are some good doctors in some areas, and some people have had mixed responses up in Canada, but that's few and far between. People that live there don't really like their medical care for the most part. They are surprised when they get a bill, though. I will say that much. So the good luck trying to do that. It's not to mention no other state in the country is doing this, and so it doesn't work outside the state. So we're going to lose high-paying companies, high-paying people. We're going to lose high-paying companies. Anybody that's going to be set above a decent wage is going to have to pay lots of money. So and they're going to pay more money for higher wages. So the companies that are left are going to pay lower wages. So they don't have to pay as much tax. So goodbye to middle income middle America, that's gone. You got low poverty or super ultra rich or government based. That's what you're going to have left in Oregon. And of course, that can't, if no one's paying for it on the low end and only high ends are only paying for it, and they don't want to pay it for us because they're going to find ways to get through the tax loopholes, that's going to bankrupt the state in a matter of, a few years. They're planning on implementing this by 2026, which if you look at the stuff in here, they actually had pre-put in their plan ahead of time. By the way, if you look at the paperwork in there, you're going to notice that this was put out well before the vote ever took place in November, and they plan to distribute to basically present this all in 2023. So they knew that 111 was going in, and they planned on it passing despite all the challenges to it because they knew no one was going to know about it and know what it really meant. And so now they're presenting this in 2023 to the legislature to get this passed, and you're thinking, well, there's no longer a supermajority in the state of Oregon. Well, because it's a constitutional right, they no longer need a supermajority in order to pass it, to change it. They just have to establish the groups that are in here. The nonprofits is a nonprofit managing group, a governing group that they talk about in here. They have to disestablish that, which only takes a majority, and then they have to institute the changes as far as using the constitutional part of it, saying, hey, we are obligated to solve this problem. We are solving this problem by instituting Bill XYZ, whatever it's going to be, and it's going to put into place these particular tasks, which is going to pass because they have the majority still. And the people it doesn't have to go to the vote of the people because it's now in the Constitution. And if someone tries to legally challenge it, whether inside the state or outside the state, there might be a few little nitpick pieces they can go for, but they can fall back on now. Well, it's a constitutional right. We have to institute this. It's a constitutional right. And so that's why 111 was such a big deal when that passed, because that gave them the constitutional fallback to now implement socialist medicine in the state of Oregon. So if they're planning on this whole thing when they put this group together in 2023, they're expecting this to be implemented by budget year 26-27. So it's about 3 years from now. They're expecting this to go into effect. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not really sure what can be done to stop it, except for making sure that in 2024, when we get a full vote again for people in the House and the Senate, and we try to get additional people in there, new people that are going to give us a majority so that they can't vote this stuff in. That's the only defense at this point. Then you can try to overturn 111. That's another thing to do, I guess. But so my guess is by 2030, 2032, if this is implemented, that Oregon will be bankrupt and everybody in the state of Oregon will not have the health insurance they need, and they're going to have to revert back or something. Assuming this gets implemented, that's my estimation. So there's a lot more in this one. I can't really go through everything here. It talks about how they're going to apply equity and equalness, and that they're going to have basically they're going to prioritize equity in healthcare versus what actually needs to happen. So if you need a surgery and so on that they consider to be part of the marginalized community needs a surgery, then they're probably going to, and you're not part of that, then they're pointing, how you doing, Kelly? Then they're probably going to be giving it to that person instead. So I really recommend you guys dig into this. Don't just put it aside, because this really affects your guys' future in the state of Oregon. If you own a house in here, it's going to really affect how your housing is going to be. If you're thinking about buying a house or thinking about doing something here in the state of Oregon, you should really know about this. If you're working for a company out here, make sure your employer knows about this. Let everybody know what's going on. And then as things start coming up where there might be some ways to fight it, jump on board. So again, all the links for all this stuff is down below in the description, or maybe above in the description, one of the two, depending on what your platform you're looking at. Take a look at it. That's SB 770 is the establishment that got this going. Now the universal healthcare is the one you want to pay the most attention to. And you're going to see some links in there to talk about it, but then you got to read between the lines, because they try to make it sound all pretty and everything else. But when you actually read deeper into their 220-page document, they start outlining things really clear, and they use language in there that if you've seen it before and how it affects it, you're going to understand what that means, and you're going to start to realize, okay, that when they say they're trying to be equitable about their health decisions, that, for example, they're going to prioritize people, marginalized communities over top of yourself. If you're a typical white male adult and things like that. So. Okay, guys, well, thank you so much for joining tonight. I really appreciate it. We have another show right after this one. It's called Ranger Games, and we're going to be talking about if you are a vet, if you are a friend of a vet, or any veteran out there that you know of that might need to get on some disability. We're going to be talking about disability benefits, how to navigate applying for disability benefits or doing amendments and all that type of stuff. We'll be talking all about that with my co-host. It'll be myself and my co-host, Jim. That is starting here up about 8 o'clock, and we will see you then. Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.
Na, na.